Good afternoon and welcome back to Techweek TV, brought to you by Callaghan Innovation. Today we're here in Auckland at Callaghan Innovation on Quay Street for a really exciting panel of one of the strategic partners of Techweek, that is Amazon Web Services, as well as 3 of their star clients here in New Zealand, all doing some really exciting things. So gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Just to introduce everybody, we have Tim here, who runs Amazon Web Services in New Zealand. So Tim, thanks so much for taking the time, for pulling together such a phenomenal panel today. Really excited to talk further. We have Hugh, the founder and director of Moxion. So Hugh, thank you. Rob, the co-founder and CTO of Predict HQ, and another Tim down the other end, the co-founder and CEO of Ambit AI. So once again, guys, thank you so much for being here. Perfect. So to kick this off, Tim, I'm just keen to understand a little bit more about what you see the world of tech looking like in 2050.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, actually. And so when we think about what the future of IT looks like, we think about the things that we can be really certain about. And so we are pretty certain that at any stage in the future, we're not going to have a conversation with a customer who says, Tim, I really like the AWS platform. I just wish you'd charge me more money for it. And the second thing that we know with a reasonable degree of certainty is that customers won't come to us and say, Tim, I really like this AWS platform. Yep. I just wish it wasn't quite as resilient as it is today. Yep. And so with the knowledge that customers are going to want us to continue to put downward pressure on pricing and to continue to make our platform more resilient, we can focus our time and energy on doing those two things.
Absolutely.
A little bit kind of shorter time frame, what we are seeing is that customers are asking us for more simplicity around the product. And so you'll see that around our platform, we're building abstractions. So we've got SageMaker as an example, which is a machine learning abstraction. We've got Control Tower, which provides a landing zone environment, which is a fully configured, fully secure, all of the account structures completed environment for AWS. We're seeing a lot of talk around data, and we've come to market now with a data lake abstraction called Lake Formation, which makes it really easy for customers to deploy data lakes and aggregate disparate data sources within their organization. And we're also seeing, as you would expect, a lot of focus around security. So we've launched a security abstraction called Security Hub to make it a lot easier for customers to deploy with the certainty of a highly secure environment.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so what you'll see continually is that we will be making technology easier to use. And a key component of that is skills. Yeah. And so we're focusing a lot of our resources in New Zealand around the development of skills for the New Zealand marketplace. And we've set a goal internally that we want to train 60,000 New Zealand IT practitioners over the next 3 years to be able to use and derive value from the AWS platform. And we're going to be doing that in a number of ways. So we have available today hundreds of hours of free online training content that any New Zealand individual can take advantage of today. We have instructor-led training courses, so we have 2 training partners in New Zealand, Althouse and Bespoke, who offer instructor-led training courses right around the country. We've got a monthly lunch and learn series of events that customers or anybody in New Zealand can come along to. Yes. And learn about individual components of the AWS platform. We run hackathons, we run game days, and something that we're really excited about is how customers are embracing the learning journey for their staff as well. And today in Wellington, in fact, right about now, we are launching the BNZ Cloud Guild, where BNZ are committing to training around about 2,000 of their staff over the next 2 years to use AWS technology. And so we see that as another way that we'll be able to deliver this goal of 60,000 trained practitioners.
That's amazing.
Over the next 3 years.
Yeah, and you've got a phenomenal story, having been the first employee with Amazon Web Services in New Zealand in 2013. You've grown the business phenomenally. For those sitting at home that might not be familiar with what it does, just to demystify it in a way in which, like, your mum and dad sitting at home home that might not understand it can understand what it is?
Yeah, sure. So AWS represents a set of IT services, and they're IT services that customers can consume via the internet, and they consume them on a pay-as-you-go model. So it breaks the traditional model of having to go out and spend large amounts of capital building your own data centres or building your own IT capability, and customers get the advantage of the platforms that we've created. And the other thing they get to take advantage of is our pace of innovation. So we innovate at an incredible rate. In fact, last year alone we released 1,957 new products, services and updates.
Wow.
And those products, services and updates are available pretty much immediately to all customers in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So you think about some of those things, machine learning, artificial intelligence services, they're really hot topics right now. Well, customers can come to the AWS platform and consume those today on a pay-as-you-go basis. So they run them up, they try them out, they test them, they experiment with them, and then they turn them off, and they've only paid for the time that they've been using them. So it's a pretty, it's a pretty exciting model, and it puts innovation and invention right at the hands of all New Zealanders.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing more on that. And I've got some more questions for you in a second. But Hugh, I'm keen to understand a little bit more about what Moxion does and how Amazon Web Services helps you do it better.
Absolutely. So the big picture is that Moxion, we help filmmakers to make better films, and the way we do that is we let people very, very quickly on a film set see the footage that the cameras are shooting. So traditionally, and I guess I'll give you an example here. If you remember 10 years ago, which is like the Middle Ages in technology, you'd take some photographs and you'd take the film along to a lab to get it processed, and then the next day you'd get it back. Well, that's what used to happen in the film industry, and it still happens because the footage that's recorded by these cameras is so big that it takes a day for that footage to be processed and be made available.
Right.
So what we've done is we've made a shortcut where you can get the footage in your hand seconds after the camera has stopped recording, and that really, really helps the people on the film set to do their jobs.
That's awesome.
And we did things which you call pickups. So a pickup is where you shot a film and the footage might not have been quite right, and so you go back and reshoot it again. And we did that for Dumbo, which is a Disney movie.
Yes.
And they were talking about this guy called Tim, who I realised afterwards was Tim Burton, and he was sitting in LA, and they were doing the pickups back in Pinewood, and we were able to get that footage back within seconds into the edit, and he could look at it, review it, and say go again or move on, and that wouldn't have been possible.
Right, no, that's amazing. And how did you first come up with the idea for this business?
I had a co-founder who was an editor, and I was working on set, and he was always bemoaning about it took so long to get the footage that I was creating to him, and we just, the light bulb above the head went off one day, and
tell me about the link with Amazon Web Services when you first started working together, how it helps enable your business.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't do what we do without Amazon. It's just, you talk about abstraction, this toolbox of components that are so readily available for us to craft what we do. It's just amazing. I mean, and the ability to scale as well, because if we couldn't do that, we wouldn't be able to plan our business, because we don't know if we're going to be on a production with a whole lot of people next week.
Yes.
And if we had to plan for that, we couldn't afford to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. And Rob, I'm keen to understand more as well about Predict HQ, what you guys do, and again, how you work with Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Predict HQ is a demand intelligence company. So we make it possible for companies like Uber, Domino's, Booking.com to better understand and predict the demand based on their customers. So a company like Uber, the way we help them is by making sure that they have vehicles in the right place at the right time, knowing that a concert's going to finish at Spark Arena at this particular time is pretty important for a company like Uber. Domino's, they, believe it or not, when there's a sports game on TV, people order pizza. So Domino's in the US use us to predict demand based on that. companies like Booking.com use us to improve their pricing of travel hotels, and there's much airlines that use us to improve or explain the pricing for flights.
Yeah, I was booking some accommodation in Las Vegas last night, 2 days before Burning Man, and it was really expensive, so I might have you to blame for that. And you know, you've had some phenomenal success. You mentioned some of those clients, you know, Uber, Booking.com, you know, Domino's, it's fantastic. You recently raised US $10 million in Series A funding, congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me more about, you know, the secret to landing some of those major customers so early on in the journey.
Sure. Well, the interesting thing is that I think the reason for it is that we just don't really have competitors. This is something that it's like this big thing that's been hiding in plain sight for so long, and we are just lucky enough to have been the first ones there, but not just the first ones there. We recognise that if we just stay as purely a data source for events, which is what which is data that we provide to customers, then we're not going to be around forever. So we've moved on to providing intelligence to customers. So I don't think I mentioned it before, but the main way that we provide this data intelligence to customers is by giving them data on real world events like concerts and sports, games, terror events, severe weather, disasters, conferences, things like that.
And how technically, you're the CTO of co-founder and CTO, how technically complex is this solution? Like, and tell me more about your story and how you've been able to build out this technology and be the world's first at it.
Yeah, it's pretty complex. So we take data from hundreds of different data sources, and we have to process that. So we put it into this data processing pipeline that A, aggregates the data, B, standardizes it, filters it. There's so much rubbish data out there, and our customers obviously don't want rubbish data. We enrich it by linking it to various things, like linking it to a venue and providing information about that venue, linking it to the sports team or the performer. And we rank the data so that customers can cut out the noise.
Yeah, fantastic, awesome. And Tim, down this end of the lineup, I'd love to know more about AI, how you came up with the idea, where you're at today, and a little bit more about your story and how you work with Amazon Web Services as well.
Yeah, so Ambit was born of wanting to create conversations that matter for humans talking to computers. So we create digital employees for the like of Vector and Hallensteins and Glassons, and these are digital employees that answer customer service queries. They help you buy something, they help you exchange, refund, whatever it might be, and they can get smarter all the time. So our journey was, we're quite young, we've been around 2 years, and in the early days we had lots of options, lots of product directions we could go, and lots of choices of platform as well. And so we ran many MVPs across different platforms, and Tim will be pleased to know that we settled on AWS, and that was for a couple of reasons. So some of it's functional, some of it's about scalability, and some of it's strategic as well. So on the functional side, it's probably already been mentioned, but just the ability to get what we need when we need it. The scalability side. The demand on our services is not driven by us, it's driven by external people wanting to do things, and we have on-tap computing supply available at an infinite scale. And finally, from a strategic point of view, it's very useful when I'm sitting down and when, for instance, when we were talking with Vector, we were a company of 7 people, and Vector Alliance Company is a very large New Zealand company, and to be able to have the backing of being able to point to our infrastructure sitting on one of the, in fact, probably the world's largest company, gives people great comfort. And they ask for security documentation, and it's already provided. You've probably been through this. Oh, how's it stored? Okay, now we're good. And it's either available immediately or it's a quick call, and it's the offer of a visit to turn up. Would you like to take an architect along to the meeting? Usually if you offer it, not needed. But it's having the power in the background, and that's one of the reasons why it's been pretty strategic and pretty key for us.
That's awesome. And you recently raised some money as well from investors including Sir Stephen Tyndall and Sir David Levine, Lewis Holdings. So congratulations on that as well. How did you decide what early investors to bring on board in order to make sure strategically you had the right people for your next phase of growth?
We were in a fortunate position of being able to choose. So due to our pretty rapid growth, we had significant interest, and then we were able to say, who are these people who are going to be able to present its options in the future. And one of the key companies I talked to, funnily enough, was Predict HQ around their journey, and also some of the other kind of luminaries in the growth company world in NZ, and who are those investors who have been able to provide support to them, and so we aligned ourselves alongside that. But it's not just an investor story. I mean, there's the technical side, there's the staff that we bring on to support that as well.
Absolutely. And Tim from Amazon, I'm keen to understand a little bit more. You talk about how Amazon Web Services is helping fill that skill gap with 60,000 people you're looking to train. So I'm keen to understand, do you think there's a skills shortage in New Zealand right now?
Look, I think the shortage is a pretty big word to call it. I think there are skills available, they are in demand, and we're trying to get ahead of the demand. So we were talking earlier, and Tim was saying that they've just brought on an AWS specialist, and there wasn't a wealth of riches to choose from, and that's where we want to get to. We want to be able to provide all New Zealand organisations the skills that they need when they need them, so that their growth isn't inhibited.
Absolutely, yeah. And gentlemen, do you find with your businesses, are you finding the necessary talent here in New Zealand, or are you opening up offices in offshore markets because it's here, or not?
It's it's certainly quite hard to find the right person. I mean, we spend a lot of time, because we're a small company, trying to find that right person. So definitely there is a shortage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd echo that. We invest a huge amount of time in trying to find the right talent, and we really struggle to find the people that we need at the right level that we need them. Yeah. So we brought in a few people from overseas. We're obviously trying to get people in New Zealand to begin with, but sometimes they just aren't there. Yeah.
And when you've all looked at opening up offices overseas, what considerations have gone into what market? I heard you saying before that you spend most of your time in Los Angeles, Hugh.
In between. We keep the technology base back in New Zealand for a few reasons. I'd rather have people in the office than sitting on the 405, inhaling the fumes. So we have our sales team and support in the US. But
right. Yeah. And what about you guys? Have you opened offices offshore yet?
Yeah, we've got an office in San Francisco, and we're actually very similar. All our R&D is here in New Zealand, and we plan to keep it that way. Yeah. But we've got our sales and support based in San Francisco because all of our customers are over there.
Yeah. It seems to be quite a common trend of a lot of great Kiwi tech companies. And Pushpay's got a similar model with most of their tech team back here.
We're the same. So, and we imagine it staying that way for some time. There's a supportive R&D environment here. There are good people. They're hard to find. We've still got people who are world class. But I think a good way of it takes you longer, but you can still find someone. And so what we're looking to do is probably shorten that time so you can find people. But I know it's a sliding spectrum. Until you can find a senior developer on minimum wage, then there's a shortage as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think that'll happen anytime soon. But a really good way to look at it is the diversity of our company. So we're 20 people, and half of them are born offshore. So we've hired them locally, but those are the people who are coming forward because we don't naturally have the resources here. We don't naturally have the deep skill base, and we'd like to have more of that.
Yeah, and in terms of are you finding in New Zealand in particular, there's more women coming through with the qualifications and skills to take on highly complex roles in these organisations? It's been a big topic this week on.
It's not a great panel to ask, is it? We've just hired our 22nd employee, which brings us up to 50% women in the business, which we're pretty proud of. Wow. Having been a software developer, that's my background. I was in the minority when I was in my last year of university, but 3 years later, it's quite a different way around. So what we're looking to do is how do how do you interest women in coming in those earlier stages and then keeping them interested, so they do get into those senior technical roles.
Yeah, thank you. And just finally, Tim, I'm keen to understand, in terms of the skills that we talk about and how Amazon Web Services is helping people train and helping people understand these skills. Where do people currently go to get trained now, and how do you see that changing over the next 20 years?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different areas. So we're seeing around about 16,000 computer grads coming out of the university system.
Yeah.
I think that there's also a lot of people, and I think this is a key point to make, that we're not necessarily talking about training people that are new to IT or new to the workforce. We're actually looking at retraining people that are already in the workforce.
Yes.
And so how do we go and engage with them? How do we help people that have had skills that were valid maybe 5 or 10 years ago? We were talking earlier about the Novell CNE qualification, which was a big thing in the 90s. Well, how do we take the people that were trained in those technologies that are no longer valid, and give them the validity of skills that exist with AWS? And again, that comes back to investment by organisations, by corporates, a la BNZ, as we've said today, launching their guild, awesome. And we hope to be launching a number of other corporate guilds to enable retraining of people that are already in the workforce.
That's very cool. Well, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time, and congratulations on all of your success, both in the startup world, but also Amazon as well. As it's been one of the great success stories of obviously the last 20 or so years. Whenever I don't know the exact year it was founded, but particularly in the last 2 years, the growth has been absolutely incredible, and I think an inspiration to entrepreneurs all over the world. So well done to all of you. Can't wait to see where your companies go. Thank you, Tim, Hugh, Rob, and Tim. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to Techweek, to the viewers for tuning in from all around the country. We've had thousands of viewers here throughout the day tuning in from around New Zealand. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. We have a few sessions to come today, followed by our last session, an interview with Peter Beck, the founder and CEO of Rocket Lab. I want to thank Amazon Web Services once again as a strategic partner of Techweek, and we look forward to seeing you back here soon for the next session. Thank you so much.